That's how you become a star. You know, that's how this works, guys. In meritocracy, which boxing never really is, that's the way it works. You beat the guys you're not supposed to beat, and you do it time and time again. It's hard to deny a guy like that.
Welcome into Boxing Scene's top stories. You're on ProBox TV. Download the ProBox TV app. Never fall behind with your boxing news. Well, sometimes the stars align for a particular weight class in boxing. Right now is at 154 pounds. That's right. The junior middleweight division is on fire after Tim Tszyu knocked out in round number 3 by Bakhram Murtazaliev in an incredible upset. But remember, we have Sebastian Fundora, the guy who beat Tim Tszyu last time out. His showdown maybe with Errol Spence Jr. Also have Virgil Ortiz and, of course, Terrence Crawford, the pound-for-pound king, also floating around. It is an embarrassment of riches at 154. To help me sort it out, Jimmy Smith in studio alongside the champs, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi, and Coach Teddy Atlas joining us via Zoom. Gentlemen, let's start with you, Paulie. How does this all sort out? How would you sort it out if you were matchmaking right now with all this talent?
Dude, it's tough, man. There's so many options, so many directions you could go here that, you know, I don't think there's really a wrong answer you can give. I think if you match any of those guys up, as long as they all fight each other, I think you're gonna have great fights. You know, we already saw it when there's been head-to-head matchups already. We had the shock of Murtazaliev beating Tszyu, and now you realize Murtazaliev is a really destructive and a powerful force within the weight class. But you've already got a weight class full of destructive and powerful forces. We've seen guys collide already, like Bohachuk and Virgil Ortiz, you know, where we see when you match these guys up together, what an impact it has. Tactical, beautiful boxing with Madrimov and Crawford, you know. So which direction you're going to go, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if Crawford wants to fight anymore, if it's going to be at 154, because there's not enough star power there for him to tickle his fancy. But Crawford against anybody would definitely make me excited. I think Virgil Ortiz and Murtazaliev, I think, would be a collision of destructive powers that would be a really, really exciting fight. You know, styles make fights. You know, I know they want to make Spence and Fundora, but you know what's crazy? This is just the politics of it, because honestly, a guy like Spence should have to fight a guy like Charles Cromwell or something. You know what I mean? Who's like a rising prospect who's got a lot of ability, and is supposed to take on a guy who looks like he's fading like Spence. A guy like Spence shouldn't look like he's fading in the Crawford fight and then get the Fundora fight. But we're dealing with politics and not actual sports here, and that's why you're probably not going to get that. But you know, I think somebody like Charles Cromwell is also a guy who could enter the mix as well. In a weight class that's full of Easterners, I think a guy like Cromwell is fresh blood out of the Westerners, and that would also give that kind of impact to the weight class as well. It's really a global, phenomenal weight class.
Israel Madrimov, Sergey Bohachuk is going to be December 21st. They'll be taking one another on. But Paulie brings up an interesting point. Chris, does anybody at 154, despite all the talent, outside of Terrence Crawford, is there that it factor in any of these names, or are they just tough guys in a tough weight class?
Well, part of the it factor is getting the world to watch you. And one of the reasons why this weight class is the talk of the town is because you got all these guys fighting each other. And we don't have a breakout star yet, and I think that's where you're going, Jimmy. But you know, you keep knocking all these guys off. You know, say for example, listen, it could be Murtazaliev. He goes out there and he beats all these guys. He's not a talker. He's not very marketable. Guess what? He's a bad man. He beat up a whole good weight class. Yeah, now you got a star in your hands. But yeah, there's a couple ways to make a star. You can be marketable outside. You could have the gift of gab. But listen, if you can fight and you can beat everybody, eventually everyone's going to pay attention. And in the world we live in today, where these fighters are getting a lot of attention, and there's tons of platforms for them to get seen. And you got a guy like Murtazaliev who was fighting unknown for his whole career, taking step-aside money after step-aside money for a bunch of big opportunities. Finally goes over to Germany, wins his title against a very, very tough guy, you know, on his soil. Comes back here, is once again the B-side, fights a name opponent in Tim Tszyu, and blows him out of the water. Hey, that's how you become a star. You know, that's how this works, guys. In meritocracy, which boxing never really is, that's the way it works. You beat the guys you're not supposed to beat, and you do it time and time again. It's hard to deny a guy like that. But in terms of the other guys that are in the weight class, I'm gonna shadow what Paulie said. I mean, there's so many good guys, and it looks like they're fighting each other. So it really is a fantastic weight class, and it's really hot right now, like you said. But we need to get these guys in the ring. I mean, I'm like chomping at the bit for the next matchup we see. But we got Murtazaliyev. I'm sorry, we have Madrimov and Bohocek, which is two guys coming off of losses against fantastic fighters who both really performed. I like that, man. We got guys losing, but they're still getting opportunities. Hopefully that can happen with the rest of the weight class as well.
I'm going to give a slight pushback here, champ. The criteria has to change because nobody in this weight class is going to beat everybody in this weight class. If they all fight each other, they're all going to get beat. We've got to jump off the Gervonta Davis criteria where you fight this guy who, even though you got a weight class full of talent and you avoid them all and you just fight this guy or this guy or this guy. You know, that if that's going to be the criteria, we're never going to change anything. We're going to create stars all for nothing, and then people are going to keep complaining about why we don't get the fights. Why the casuals?
But Paulie, it seems like this week class is different. These guys are willing to fight.
But that's what I'm saying. But so the star power can't come from one guy sweeping the weight class. That's not going to happen. If they all fight each other, they're all going to beat each other.
No, but
there's nobody that's going to sweep everybody in this weight class. I don't see that. If they all fight each other, rarely does that happen though in a weight class where there's this much talent. That used to happen in the '70s heavyweights, for example. You don't see that today anymore. You know what I mean? Like and even Ali got beat and still had the star power, right? So. Unless the criteria changes where you can't have to sweep a weight class to be the star, you're going to keep getting fighters that don't fight each other. You're going to manufacture stars instead of creating stars. And then okay, people, the non-boxing fans are going to keep saying, that's why I don't watch boxing. They don't fight each other.
Paulie,
the criteria has to change.
Can I dream? Can I dream? Can I get an opportunity?
And I'm the pessimist. Teddy, what do you think?
Yeah, Teddy, my thought on this, 4 Kings, they all lost. What's your thought on something like that happening?
Listen, the tournament that they did, I think it was the same weight, actually, if my memory serves me correct, where Andre Ward came out on top of that tournament some years ago, right? That you got the top 168-pound or middleweight, whatever weight it was. I know Andre Ward.
Super middle, I believe.
Yeah, he eventually went up to light heavyweight and took that too. Of course, he was an Olympic gold medalist. The cream rose to the top. You know, right now, listen, it's a good problem to have that both champions touched on. You know, I use my Greek mythology. You know, if it was Mount Olympus, Zeus right now might be Terence Crawford just because of class, just because of what he's done in the past. And I kind of like the idea of like who could knock Zeus off Mount Olympus, which one of these guys could do it. And look, I'm not saying we give, you know, preferential treatment just to Crawford, but I'm just saying that he is the best known out of all these fighters, that every one of them have real merit. I mean, really have a right to be thought about as, you know, a top guy, which I'm sure their own people, their own connections, including themselves, think of themselves as, hey, I'm the top guy. I know, but Paulie touched on it. You know, you do have to generate that star power. You do. That is a fight in itself. That is a production and a process in itself. And the guy who right now, again, is at the top of the mountain with it is Crawford. I like to see something that's, how about we call it, knock the king off the top of the mountain. You know, let's see who we can place, do some kind of rating system. I know I'm going, you know, off charter here and creating my own sort of, you know, path, but rate somebody as the top and then start doing some kind of incremental tournament-style thing to knock that guy off the top. Again, it's a good problem to have. You got so many different sort of looks in this division now. You know, you got the guy that Chris just called looks like a monster, you know, in the Murtazaliyev. Of course he's a monster. I can't pronounce his freaking name. You know, you got brute force with him, although he knows how to fight damn well too. Beautiful kind of left hook that started the problem for Zoo. But you got this big monster. You got these guys like Madrimov and Bohocek. You're going to be left with one there. That makes our job a little easier. And then you got another guy that was, you know, looking to be the monster, wants to still be the monster. Ortiz, he's been the least tested, I guess, of them all. But in some ways, he's had the most enthusiasm around him because of his destructive nature, the way he goes and gets guys, the way he, takes the air out of the balloon by going to the body and just leaving guys in a heap. So you got a little bit of everything. And then you got the question mark that Paulie touched on, Spence. At one time he would have been at the top of the heap. He would have been the guy who would try to knock off the mountain. Now there's a question mark about him, whether or not he still can compete and what level can he compete at. So it's a marvelous problem to have. There's a lot of ways to go about it. And the best part about it, it's like going into a candy store. You got all different assortments of candy. You got the jelly candies, you got the milk chocolate, you got a little bit of everything.
The question I have for you, Chris, let's throw it to you about it. Tim Tszyu, the guy who's lost 2 in a row, the depth of this weight class, the difficulty he might have climbing back because it's so deep, is he still a factor at 154 to you?
Not right now, no. He's gonna have a long rebuilding period. I would say probably 18 months to 2 years. I think he's got to go grassroots, go back home, go back to Australia, get some fights out there, get some wins, get your confidence back. Go get some rest. He's had a rough year, from back-to-back training camps to fighting really tough guys to injuries, 2 losses. So I would say take some time off, get your mind right, get your psychology right, and then just grassroots campaign, get back to the top. It sucks, but you got to start over sometimes. You take some steps back, and it takes some time to get back up there. So I don't think Tszyu is going to be in this title picture for quite some time.
Paulie, when you look at it, do you put Terence Crawford as Zeus on Mount Olympus? Do you put him at 154 when he says it's kind of Canelo or bust? Do you think he fights any of these guys, or is it Canelo or I walk off into the sunset? What's your prediction on it, Paulie?
I don't think he fights at 154 again. I think it's going to be Canelo or bust. I think Crawford has done a lot in the sport, and I think he can only be criticized for what he would try to do at 154. I don't think he would get enough credit. In terms of risk-reward, there's more of a risk than there is the reward. The reward is accomplishing things he's already accomplished. He already won a 154-pound world title. Can he really go for the whole unification? Can he try to go for Canelo? Probably he'll try to go for Canelo. If he doesn't get it, I don't think he'll go for the whole unification. It's just it's a lot of trouble at his age for somebody who's accomplished and done so much already. I also think that if he hangs around long enough, he's going to get beat too, because age also catches up to you. And again, this is a very, very difficult weight class. That was a 7-5, 6-6 fight with Madrimov. So you're talking about they're already
against the least experienced guy in this division.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to call it the least experienced guy, Jimmy,
fewest
because
fights,
that guy has a million amateur
right.
fights. Those guys don't. You can't look at their pro experience and look at it the same way. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough enough weight class where he's got the biggest star power, obviously. So you put him at the top of Mount Olympus. But again, if your criteria is going to be that you got to beat these guys and sweep them, then go watch WWF or whatever they call it now, WWE. You know what I mean? Where you can script the fights, because a weight class with this much talent, constantly fighting each other, they will all get beat. They all beat each other because boxing math doesn't work anyway. Somebody might beat one guy and then lose to the other guy. If they all fight each other, they will all get beat. So if your criteria is a guy who has to stay on top of the mountain, then keep watching boxing the way it's been. Go watch your favorite star fight bread makers, and you'll have a star.
Teddy, I'm curious if you agree with that, because, Fundora is, 6'5". You have Virgil Ortiz, who's an offensive specialist. You have Madrimov, who is, technical but comparatively inexperienced. Bohachuk, very, very tough. If you had to pick somebody to maybe unify in this division, who would it be to you, Teddy? If Crawford doesn't fight in this weight class again?
If it's not Crawford, you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got, I tell you, I got a feeling that what we saw with Bakram Murtazaliev, there's more to it than the eye may have caught. I think there's more to it than just pure destructive force. The guy's big. He's long. Paulie touched on it with Madrimov. I mean, these guys come from a region of the world in the amateurs where they got a zillion fights. And they're hard people. Like along the lines of coming from the mold of a better BF, where that region of the world breeds tough warrior-type people with a code, with a mentality, a warrior's mentality that is part of their breeding, their upbringing in the sport. And I think that when I saw certain things with him, he was so destructive that at the end of the day, you say, well, he's just a big, strong guy. No, he's a lot more than that. So he's a guy that might wind up, standing from a technical standpoint again, with the reach, the length that he has, the jab that he has, the ability to deliver the kind of punches, the way he delivered them. It wasn't just being delivered like a wrecking ball swinging from a crane. I mean, that was a beautiful, I'll say it again, compact left hook that he threw. So I wouldn't, I wouldn't look past him. Also, obviously, you're leaving Crawford out of it. Ortiz. Ortiz, the guy, he's got boxing ability. He's young. He's got boxing ability. He's still a work in progress. He's just starting to really fight at this level, show us what he's got at this level. I think his last fight, a tough fight with Bohocuk, a close fight, I think that's going to give him something to become better, for him to develop with. And yeah, he's a left hook artist. Yeah, he's a body punch artist. Yeah, he's a pressure fighter. I've seen him use a good jab. I've seen him use his legs. I've seen him box a little bit. So that's a guy, that I'll put in there. Right now, Mutsal Salayev, the guy that I can't pronounce his name too well. If he's that tough to pronounce, he's going to be that tough to fight.
We'll call it the Coach Teddy Special. If you can't pronounce your name, great fighter, but he is absolutely fantastic. Mutsal, of course, with a knockout last Saturday, might be the top of the heap at 154 pounds as those fights shake out and it makes boxing news. We'll give it to you right here at ProBox TV, along with Wednesday night fights, a women's rematch from Madison Square Garden you do not want to miss.
Wednesday night fights. In partnership with DeBella Entertainment, it's Broadway Boxing, Heroes on the Hudson 2. With proceeds benefiting veterans of the U.S. Armed Forces. October 23rd. Don't miss Mio Yoshida as she defends her IBF Bantamweight World title in a rematch against Sharetta Metcalf. Live from the theater at Madison Square Garden. Wednesday night fights.
For more ProBox TV, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play. ProBox TV, your boxing channel.